Welcome in, everyone, to the Barking Browns. Hope you're having a fantastic Friday evening. I am your host, Casey Kenneman, and this is Know Your Enemy, the podcast where we do a deep dive and break down the Browns' upcoming opponent. As always, we're brought to you by our friends over at SeatGeek. You guys know the drill. Just go over to SeatGeek, punch in that code Barking Browns, and receive $20 off your first order. Now, I'm not a math guy, but I'm thinking like tickets are going for like $7 this week. So maybe if you go to SeatGeek, punch in the code, maybe SeatGeek owes you money. I'm not sure how that works, but just check my math. Go over to SeatGeek, use the promo code Barking Browns, and receive $20 off your first order. We have a good one for you here tonight. The Browns are going to be welcoming the 4-5 Ravens to the shores of Lake Erie. The Ravens have had a very tumultuous season. Definitely not the season people envisioned them having, but here they are fighting their way back. They control their own destiny, which is something I am very jealous of. Right now, the Ravens are favored by 7.5 points on the road. That's a big number for a road game. And then the over/under is only 38.5. So they're predicting something like a 23-16 type of affair. But that's my overview of it. I need to bring someone on who can actually break down the Ravens for us, can actually paint the picture of what the Browns are going to be facing this Sunday. And I couldn't do better than what I've got here, okay? This is a friend of the show. He is the host of Locked On Ravens, Mr. Kevin Oestreicher.
Casey, I appreciate you having me back, and I'm excited that the Ravens actually – this is a weird schedule quirk for them. After this game, the Ravens will be done with Cleveland, and they haven't played the Bengals or the Steelers once. So this is the only taste of the AFC North that the Ravens have had so far this season, and week 2 went their way. And, for the Ravens' perspective, they're hoping this one goes their way too.
Yeah, and the fact that you have those games remaining against the rest of the division is kind of why, even at 4-5, you guys control your own destiny. It's just the way that it's worked out. The way we always start the show is we just get a vibe check. If you could just give us the vibe check of how Baltimore's feeling now in week 11.
Yeah, well, it's a lot better than it was a month ago. I'll say that. It has really been a tale of two seasons where right now the confidence level's starting to come back. They dealt with a lot of injuries early in the season, a lot of poor play, but they're on a 3-game win streak, hoping to make that 4 on Sunday. Lamar Jackson is back. I know he had the little knee scare earlier in the week, but he's all good to go. Ravens are relatively healthy, not as healthy as they were last week. They had no injuries literally last week to report of, but now you're probably going to miss guys like Rashad Bateman. Marlon Humphrey's been ruled out. We'll see on Mike Green, who was late addition to the injury report, but feels like there's a lot of confidence back in the building. And while they never gave up in that building, there were a lot of questions that they needed to answer. And of course, a lot of that is solved when your star quarterback comes back and he can patch up a lot of those issues. There are still some things that need to work out, but I would say, if we were talking 3 weeks ago on that Saturday where Lamar was ruled out for that Bears game and there was that whole practice saga situation, those vibes are at an all-time low. Now they're slowly building back, literally using it 1 week at a time because, with 5 losses in week 11, every loss can push you a bit closer to elimination. And the way that I see it, there's only going to be one team in this division making the playoffs with the way the AFC is shaping up right now. I expect the loser of the AFC East, whether that be Buffalo or New England, to make it. And then I expect 2 AFC West teams to make it. So I think the Ravens their path is that division. If they don't get that, I think they're going to have a hard time making the playoffs, especially because they don't hold a lot of tiebreakers this time of year with the losses they've had.
Yeah, and if you were to look at the schedule overview before the season started, it's pretty much almost guaranteed the AFC North usually gets at least 2 teams in. Yeah. So to see it fall, and I agree with you. I think this division is only going to produce 1 playoff team. It's just crazy to think not too long ago all 4 teams were finishing over 500. And it just goes to show you the fluctuation and why you can't really play the schedule game. Right. You just never know. Well, let's talk about the rough start. You guys have a heartbreaker in the season opener against Buffalo. Obviously that's a game that just you watch. It's a heavyweight fight going both ways. You could tell both teams are playoff caliber teams. You come to Cleveland, I think you walked away 41-17.
Yeah,
it was a game that was close in the first half, and then you blew the doors off the Browns in the second half, which is a microcosm for the Browns season, by the way. We've been in every first half, and then things happen, dominoes start falling.
Right.
But then you guys lose 4 straight, and at that point, I started to see the graphics, teams with, off to a 1-4 start, 1-5 start, you start to see historical things, but it never ever felt like the Ravens were out of it. because I think you could easily look and see the Lamar thing.
Right. And that was it where, you know, even with Lamar, they were losing. I mean, they lost that Buffalo game, that Detroit game. He played for about 3/4 in that Kansas City game. A lot of it had to do with the defense, not necessarily the offensive side of the ball. But you saw that when Lamar went out, it's like, okay, I mean, everybody already knows how valuable he is. But, you know, when you're throwing out Cooper Rush, that was a weird signing in the first place. Tyler Huntley was able to win against Chicago, and that honestly almost saved their season. Having losses through 8 weeks would have been catastrophic. But for me, Baltimore was, I mean, I agree. I don't think they were ever out of it because I wanted to see what they looked like when Lamar came back. And last year, it was kind of a similar story where coming out of their bye week, they really turned things around and they went on a streak to end the year. They were struggling in a couple of different areas, even, before the bye week last year with their defense. I mean, Jamar Chase felt like he put up 10 billion yards on them in those 2 games that they played in Cincinnati. And after that second game, they inexplicably won both of those games somehow. But after that second game, they had a defensive meeting where they made a bunch of changes. And it's kind of been the same thing this year where defensively wasn't great early on, had to make some changes personnel wise as well as schematically. They're bringing a lot more pressure now. I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit later on here. But I think that Baltimore was always going to be in it. But the problem was, or at least it honestly still is, you put yourself in a situation where every game is always important in the NFL, but like it literally is. I mean, if you get that 6th loss, is 11-6 going to be enough to win the division? Is 10-7 now the way this division is playing? I mean, I don't know how big of a you need to win it with the way Pittsburgh has looked recently and Cincinnati's defense and all that, but the Ravens still have a lot of key games left on the schedule. That they have this Browns and Jets stretch, but after that, you're going to be playing the Bengals twice, the Steelers twice. You have the Patriots who look really good, the Packers. I mean, you have a lot of tough opponents left on your schedule, despite the little lull here. So Baltimore needs to be able to just want to know every week. I mean, that's the saying that they have to go by.
So the Jets kind of stole all the headlines with all the moves right at the trade deadline. But from my stance, when I looked at, you guys have pretty much made moves throughout the season. You guys have made a lot of trades. How do you view the new trade assets that have joined the Ravens?
Yeah, it certainly helped them. I think a lot of people, myself included, would have liked to see a little bit more brought in at the deadline. But I mean, the Ravens just don't really operate that way most of the time. So although that was disappointing, I do think the acquisitions they made in themselves, just if you want to look at those moves individually, they were good. I mean, Alohi Gilman comes in for Odafe Oweh, and I think that's one of those rare moves across the league, maybe across sports, where felt like a win-win for both sides. The Chargers needed pass rush, and Oweh's playing really well over there for them right now. And for Gilman, he's opened up Kyle Hamilton, who they had to play deep a lot last season once they went through those changes because that was really their only option if that didn't work. I mean, they were done defensively. So that did work. But what Gilman has done is it has allowed Hamilton to move back up towards the line. They're almost using Hamilton as an edge defender right now, setting him off the edge and blitzing him a lot. And with the Ravens struggles to rush 4 and get pressure with rushing 4, they've brought the pressure to the opposing quarterbacks, to the opposing teams. And using Hamilton off the edge has been a big role there. But Gilman himself has allowed the defense to play a lot more free. He's made a couple of big plays himself. He does have a missed tackle problem, but other than that, he's about all you can ask for. And then Draymond Jones coming in from Tennessee. Only one game, played really well in that game, had 4 pressures on the quarterback. And he's one of the things, like, when I talk about the Ravens and almost their lack of pass rushing 4, what Draymond Jones can do effectively is he can win one-on-ones, where you can just line him up on the edge and say, all right, hey, go out there and win. And Jones actually, I mean, he was from Ohio State and he played D-line over there. And so he has transformed himself into more of an edge interior guy, like a hybrid player, as opposed to strictly on the interior. He's around 281 now compared to what he was at Ohio State and coming out of college. So one game sample size so far is pretty good. He made JJ McCarthy roll out of the pocket a couple of times and make some tough decisions. So, did what he was supposed to do. That's what they brought him in for. And so far it's looking so good.
Let's go to the offensive outlook, because this has been a tale of 2 seasons. Obviously, you're without Lamar for a big stretch. And when we kind of look at what's going on here, you see there's a direct change. If you look at the points per game on the season, it's 25.4, but with Lamar, it's 31. I mean, and that's a big swing. Pass yards are greatly increased as well. He just provides so many problems, and it changes the dynamic of your team. So since he's been back, what's really stood out to you about the Ravens offense?
Yeah, I mean, he's what makes the gears turn on offense. And, with Huntley in there, the skill set is similar. Cooper Rush was just a disaster all in all. But what Jackson has done recently is, and this dates back a couple of years, it's not just a new thing, but the way that he spreads the football around, I think, is really key for this team. Zay Flowers has been dominating the target share and the reception share and the yard share as a receiver. I mean, he's been the guy for them. But we've seen in recent weeks, I mean, he's gotten the tight ends involved, Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely, and Charlie Kolar, is getting some other players involved as well. But the way that he operates, and it's essentially him just being on the field makes it harder to defend. I mean, especially even in the run game where you have to account for where Lamar is and what he's doing at all times. And we've seen it. I mean, I lost count at this point how many times it's happened about the fact where you always have to have guys follow Lamar, because at the end of the day, defenses don't want to get beat by Lamar. They're okay with, what, if someone else beats you, all right, you live with it. But if you know that Lamar is this threat, both with his arm and with his legs, you have to send manpower over there. And that leaves opportunities for, obviously, Derrick Henry in the run game, Justice Hill, Keaton Mitchell, not have as many guys. So you can stack a box pre-snap, but when the play actually starts and they start to run these fakes and actions and whatnot, all of a sudden you need to send guys over to Lamar, because he will hold the ball and he will carry the ball. And while he hasn't done, there aren't as many designed runs in this Ravens offense under Tom Monken as opposed to Greg Roman, it's a different style of offense. They're not afraid to go to it if it means they're going to pick up the yards. So I think for me, Lamar, he's the guy here. He's a very low turnover player, low mistake player. He's efficient. Right now, he's throwing a touchdown pass on 10.2% of his passes, which would be the best mark in NFL history dating back to 1954. So, I mean, there's so much about Lamar that makes him so incredible. And, I try my best to not be numb to it, because obviously watching Lamar and covering Lamar every single week, I mean, there are these plays that he makes where, all the highlight NFL pages and everyone who is like, oh, this is incredible. And I'm just like, yeah, that's like Lamar's second play like that of the day. Like, okay, whatever. But I mean, yeah, exactly. I truly try to make sure that I'm appreciating the greatness Lamar brings to the table every single week, because I mean, he's truly unique. He's truly one of one. And you can tell the difference when he's out there versus when he's not.
Yeah, and just from the outside, I feel like he's using his legs as least as he's ever has, but just the threat, the implication is enough to say you obviously you're playing with one fewer defender because you have to attempt to account. And it's easy because I could tell you in a vacuum, like, oh, here's how you handle Lamar Jackson. You need to funnel the ball to the outside, control the middle of the field, take away escape lanes. Good luck with all that. Like, you can have a plan, but pulling it off if I were to classify what Lamar is, to me, he's the greatest reactionary athlete I've ever seen. He'll even let you make the first move, and he can just react to it in a phone booth. And you don't. If he sees you, you have no shot. So I could get where you almost become numb watching that week after week to not appreciate it. So I'm appreciative that you are looking at it like that, because that's, he is special. He truly is.
Yeah, he's unbelievable, and the way that he's been able to lift everybody around him, and that's what I talk about with some of these players, and it's not just a Lamar Jackson thing. I mean, Josh Allen does it. Patrick Mahomes does it. All these great quarterbacks do it. But, especially when you look back to Lamar's 2019 season and some of the receivers, I mean, he's never had a Jamar Chase or a Tyreek Hill or a Stephon Diggs to work with like some of these other quarterbacks have. And that doesn't mean he hasn't had talented players. I mean, obviously, Mark Andrews has been a staple there for years at the tight end position, and guys have come through. But, I mean, he won an MVP his first time around with, Marquise Brown and Seth Roberts and Willie Steen. It's no disrespect to those guys, but it's not your star-studded wide receiver cast or anything like that. So he, to me, is an incredible talent elevator. He elevates everybody around him, and you can see everything that he does for everybody else. I mean, he's gotten guys paid and have gone elsewhere, and they're kind of like, where's this guy we saw in Baltimore? And my answer to that question is, well, who's your quarterback? It's not Lamar. So it gives you that extra appreciation for what he does, because not only is he so skilled and so talented himself, but those skills and that talent rubs off on everybody around him.
Well, this is the last flowers I'm going to give him during this podcast, but he was robbed last year of the MVP. I don't know how there's an argument that he wasn't.
I agree. I'm with you. I mean, it is what it is at this point, but it's funny because even through 6 games, I mean, he obviously missed the month with the injury, but I mean, I don't expect him to win just because the Ravens are, a lot of it has to do with seeding. That was one of the arguments for Josh last year, where the Ravens, they were 3 and the Bills were 2, but only playing in 6 games and the Ravens being where they are, I don't expect him to win this season, but his numbers again are historically efficient, and he's a guy that's going to be in that conversation every year he's healthy. So I agree. I thought he was robbed of it last year. I was pretty shocked when he didn't win, but I don't have a vote. So it is what it is.
Well, let's transition to the running game. Where do you view Derrick Henry at this season in his trajectory? He's from when I watch him play, it's like it's inside of a game's a microcosm for his season. He gets stronger as it goes. Are you seeing that this season as well?
Yeah, we've seen that this year. The thing with Derrick, and I mean, his numbers aren't as gaudy as we've seen from him in years past. And, I think a big reason for that is the offensive line. And I'm sure we'll get to that at some point here. But the offensive line has been a really tough point for the Ravens this season. They didn't really do enough to address it in the offseason outside of re-signing Ronnie Stanley. They handed their guard positions off to guys who weren't ready for them, or at least didn't have any competition to compete with in the preseason and during training camp. They've seen regression from Roger Rosengard, and Tyler Linderbaum is suffering a little bit because of the players playing around him. So Henry, I mean, I don't care who you are. If you're Lamar Jackson, if you're Derrick Henry, if you're Saquon Barkley, Mahomes, whoever, if you're one of the greatest talents, it all starts up front. There's not a lot you can do every single play when you have 2 or 3 guys in the offensive backfield after 1.5 seconds because guys fall down or can't get to their block or can't stunt correctly. So actually, it was funny because in this Minnesota game, we saw Henry have more success running away from the offensive lineman than running into it. And Henry himself, I think the misconception about Derrick Henry is that, you look at his size and I mean, he's just a mammoth of a human being. Like everybody looks at him and says, oh, that's a power back. Like that's a short yard. And that's not who Derrick is, to his core. Like Derrick is a guy like you talked about, the later in the game that it is, the harder he is to bring down. And while he has that power element to him, he's almost like a freight train where, early on plays, he needs time to get going, but the further he gets downfield and the more speed he picks up, the harder he is to stop and tackle. I mean, I'm moving out of the way. If I'm 20 yards down the field and see Derrick Henry with all that momentum running at me, he's going to run right through you. So he hits 20 plus miles an hour pretty consistently when he gets on those long runs. Derrick's a guy that is still playing really well. I know people are going to wonder about when is stuff going to start to slow for him because he's getting up there in age, but I still think he's playing well despite the lower numbers. It's like lower numbers for Derrick Henry are still really good numbers for probably any other running back. So they've used Keaton Mitchell a little bit too. He's expected to play a little more with Justice Hill being out, and it was crazy how little they used him early in the season considering the player that he is. But him and Derrick Henry together, I think, make a really good 1-2 punch. And a lot of that is because of the fact that Derrick's still playing at a high level.
Derrick Henry is my argument for why hip drop tackles should be allowed in the secondary. I in no way want Denzel Ward going head up with Derrick Henry. If you want to Olay and let him get past you and piggyback him, I see why you would do that. But you mentioned the man's name, so I'm going to go ahead and make a crazy-ass statement. Derrick Henry's a gold jacket player, all the respect in the world. Keaton Mitchell scares the hell out of me. Like that is a guy that, as a Browns fan, when that style of running back gets the ball, you just hold your breath till he's on the ground.
Yeah, and Keaton's one of those guys where he has that burst. This year, Keaton only has 15 carries, which again, it's malpractice why he wasn't on the field earlier. But out of his 15 carries, I mean, he currently in the NFL, because he doesn't qualify for the regular qualifying stat, so I made my own qualifying stat of 15 carries. And with players that have 15 carries or more, Keaton Mitchell is 4th in the NFL in yards per attempt. And, he also has multiple runs of 15 plus yards and guys who have hit 20 miles an hour 3 times. I saw that, this stat was put out where running backs that have hit 20 miles an hour on a carry 3 or more times this season, Keaton Mitchell with 3 of them on 15 rushes. The other guys in that category, the lowest who have 3 or more, the lowest rush total is Jahmyr Gibbs at 128. So, he's explosive. He's someone that you need to account for at all times. They can use him in a lot of different ways. And, I would take a couple carries off of Derrick Henry's plate early in this game. And, even throughout the season, like, as you're gearing up to hopefully make the playoffs and on that run, like, if you keep Derrick as fresh as possible for the postseason, it's not like you're losing. Like, I think Henry is a better player than Keaton Mitchell, but it's not like you're losing all of this. It's not like this huge drop off between Derrick and Keaton Mitchell, as some people think. So using them together in tandem, different skill sets, but really important to utilize both of them. And I think Keaton's a player that can make an impact in this game.
Yeah, Keaton Mitchell in space is terrifying to me. So I'm hoping that that Monken doesn't do that. Speaking of Todd Monken, with all this talk of like hotshot coordinators and everybody gets on hot list, is there any fear at all that someone poaches him eventually to become a head coach?
Yeah, well, this is his third year as the coordinator, and both off seasons he's had at least one head coach interview. So it seems like people are already on that track. Todd has faced some criticism this season. A lot of it actually internally. There were multiple articles coming out from local papers here and local sites of anonymous players bashing him, coaches, trust levels and whatnot. And, Monken really took exception to that and made it pretty clear he wasn't happy with that. So I don't know the situation with Todd. I mean, I still think he's a good coordinator, utilizes his players to their skill sets and adapts really well. He did that in Cleveland, Tampa, even when he was at Georgia. I mean, he's done that for years now, where he's given a roster and he's able to adapt to it really well. So I don't know what Todd's situation is going into this season, or I guess going into the offseason, where I'm sure if the Ravens continue to be this way offensively, continue to put points on the board, they make the postseason, he will certainly be in that conversation. And we'll have to see. But, with Todd, sometimes the offense can start really slow and then they go on this tear and it isn't enough, or they start really fast and they just go on a lull for a couple of quarters. The Ravens are a really momentum-based team where if they get momentum, they can ride that and just stomp you for 2 or 3 quarters. If that play goes against you, it can all unravel in an instant. So that offense, that's everywhere, offensively, defensively, coaching staff wise. So Monken, to me, he's the best coordinator this team has had in a while, but everybody has their flaws. Everybody has their things that, they can improve on, or, aren't their strengths. So I would expect Monken to get more interviews this offseason. Does that result in a coaching job? I'm not sure, but definitely seems like he's already a candidate teams have been looking at.
Well, I got call an audible here, something in the chat. And the Browns gave up a kickoff and a punt return in the same quarter last week. What's the return game like for Baltimore? And are we in trouble again?
Well, the return game has been interesting for them. I actually just talked with, I did an interview with Ravens long snapper Nick Moore, who, has been a part of that group now. He's actually the veteran in that room, because Justin Tucker's not there. Sam Cook is gone. Morgan Cox has been in Tennessee. So it's kind of a new guard in Baltimore now, special teams wise. The kickoffs, they have LeJontay Wester back there in the punt return game, who is shifty and as electric as ever. He's had a couple of big ones. He obviously broke one in the preseason, and he's that guy you got to account for and make sure you get him down, because he can juke you out of your shoes. Kickoff return wise, they've been all right. Hasn't been anything super special, but Jordan Stout, their punter, has been really good this season. He honestly would be my pick for the Pro Bowl out of all the AFC guys. Tyler Loop is their rookie who's replacing Justin Tucker. He's been pretty nails on kicks this season for the most part. So special teams unit, which had actually struggled the last couple of seasons, has been really, really good for them this year. Return wise, that's not they haven't had anything to write home about there, but I'd just say they're solid in that category with the potential to break off some big ones.
Well, let's go to the defensive side of the ball. Let's look at the defensive outlook for the second half of the season. What do you expect from this Ravens defense?
I expect them to continue to get back on track, and a lot of that has to do with some of the changes they've made. We talked about them earlier with blitzing a lot more, using Kyle Hamilton in those roles. Even for a guy like Draymond Jones, who we talked about, they stood him up over the center on some of those plays. So it almost reminded me, going back to for the Ravens, Don Martindale, who was essentially their live by the blitz, die by the blitz coordinator for all those years. Yeah, he's someone that would send 9 guys at the line, and you would have to guess, all right, are all 9 of these guys coming, or they're going to drop everybody but 3 back into coverage? And we've seen some looks like that from Zach Orr, not to as an extreme level as that, but I think at this point, with what they have, the pass rush is always going to be an issue. I don't think they're going to have a high-level pass rush for the remainder of this season. They just don't have the guys. I mean, Nnamdi Madubuike, who still leads the Ravens in sacks. He hasn't played since that Cleveland game in week 2. Draymond Jones technically is their leader, but he got those sacks in Tennessee. We're not counting that. So
Can't do it.
Yeah, Nnamdi's been their sack leader. They just haven't had a lot of production in terms of sacks this season. Travis Jones is really good.
It's my guy.
I still don't know how he fell to the 3rd round. I mean, I'll take it, but I mean, he's played really well. He's expected to get a big contract this offseason.
Mm-hmm.
You have other guys as well. I mean, I'm not sure Mike Green's going to play in this game, but we've started to see him get up to speed a little bit here. The pass rush is going to be the question. Now, in the secondary, they're going to have to cover. Malachi Starks has really found his way over the last couple of weeks and been one of the best safeties in the league over that stretch, playing in the deep part of the field. And the Ravens, their mantra has been don't break. So you're not really going to see them allow a 60-yard touchdown over the top because they make sure that that doesn't happen. What they'll do is they'll allow you to take that short and intermediate stuff over the middle of the field. They'll let you work down a little bit. And then, once you get to the Ravens 30, right in the red zone-ish 20-yard line, they're going to start to say, all right, you're not moving the ball anymore. And essentially their plan is to make you kick on every possession, a touchdown or a punt or a field goal, because if you don't score touchdowns against this Ravens defense, an offense led by Lamar Jackson, it's really hard to win a game when you're only kicking on the offensive side of the ball. And Lamar Jackson's going down the field and scoring touchdowns. So, you need to go out there and score touchdowns from an offensive side of the ball. The Ravens, I mean, every category early in the season, they were the worst scoring defense in the league. They're still not a very good 3rd down or red zone defense. They've gotten better in terms of passing and rushing in terms of yards per attempt, but it's going to come down to the stars. I mean, Roquan Smith had a tough start to the year. He's played really well recently. Some of these young guys they're relying on, like a Teddy Buchanan in the inside linebacker spot. Nate Wiggins has played well for them. You have Chidobe Awuzie even, who they signed as a vet. I know everybody thought Jair Alexander was going to be that big vet signing for them. He now is not even in football at this point. He's with Philly, but stepped away from the game. So Chidobe stepped up in a really big way. It's just going to come down to, like, you have your star power, and those are the guys that will probably determine wins and losses for you. But, your depth pieces also play a really big role. And so I'm expecting those guys to step up too.
Yeah, playing this Browns offense is going to be just the feel-good cure for a defense who's looking to find their way. Who's the next man up for Marlon Humphrey with him being out?
It's Chidobe Awuzie. So it would be Awuzie. They have Nate Wiggins and Chidobe, and then they have TJ Tampa, who's a second-year guy at Iowa State, who has played a decent amount of snaps. Then you have Keon Martin, who's an undrafted guy who's primarily a slot player, but he still is in there and available for you. The Ravens also, they can use Kyle Hamilton as a big nickel if they need to. They can bring guys down. So the Ravens like the positionless defense. I mean, they'll drop, that Cleveland game week 18 last year, they dropped Michael Pierce back into coverage and he picked off Bailey Zappi. And that's one of the highlights in Ravens history. So, I mean, they're going to bring guys in, play guys at weird positions, but the 1-for-1 replacement on the outside of Chidobe Awuzie, if, some of those snaps were allocated in the slot, it's Hamilton, Keon Martin, and those types of players. So it's next man up, but it's almost like next men up because you play so many guys in so many different spots.
I just had visions of Michael Pierce rumbling down the field just now.
I wish you had scored the touchdown. I wish you didn't kneel it down. I was getting ready for the big man rumble return. How
you missed that guy in coverage, I'll never know. Well, threw me off my game there.
Yeah, no, that's on me. That's on me.
No, look, man, that was a traumatic experience, and I love a fat man rumble. Trust me, man. More than most people, I appreciate it. What are some matchups you're monitoring this week?
One I'm actually really interested in is because I know the Cleveland offense runs through the tight ends and running backs, and no wide receivers haven't necessarily been. I know Jerry Jeudy had his best game of the year last week, but I love Harold Fannin. Like, I think Harold Fannin is awesome, and I know he's been kind of on the injury report. I know he's not on it anymore, but I know he's been kind of with the hamstring thing. But him and Njoku together, I mean, I've been an Njoku guy for years, and I mean, I'm not sure what his long-term future in Cleveland is with Fannin now there, but I'm really curious because, the Ravens can bring Kyle Hamilton down. They can use guys like Teddy Buchanan and Trenton Simpson, or maybe even Roquan on some of those tight ends. They can try to match up with that personnel. But, I mean, I'm expecting Cleveland to use that heavy personnel a decent amount in this game. And
Mm.
with Fannin and his ability and just, I mean, he's a matchup nightmare all across the board. And, I'd be lying if I told you that I didn't have any Harold Fannin stock in Dynasty, because I do have Harold Fannin stock in Dynasty.
I
So,
respect it.
this to me is a huge matchup because, with guys like Cedric Tillman back and Jerry Jeudy, like those are your wideouts. But I think this game, like over the middle of the field, like I said, the Ravens tend to give up like those 10 to 15 yard plays. And, they play very soft at times, when they don't press as much as I think a lot of people want them to. So
Mhm.
those zones will be available for those guys to run over the middle of the field with. And while it'll get a little harder to score the more you get down the field on them, I mean, for Dylan Gabriel, a young quarterback, I mean, you need those safety valves. And if he's going to be getting pressured and he's going to have to speed up that internal clock, if the Ravens really test him, it's probably nice for him to have a couple of big tight ends he can chuck those balls down to and just say, hey, I'll throw this to you in the flat, go rumble for a little bit. So I think that's a really intriguing matchup to me for the Ravens defense versus the Browns offense. On the other side of things, I mean, whoever matches up against Zay Flowers, I think is going to be the key here. And, Zay's someone that I mentioned earlier. He's been the target share dominator for them this year. He's so shifty with the football and wins at every level. And so that Cleveland defense is incredible. But the real matchup to me is going to be the Ravens O-line versus the Browns D-line, particularly Myles Garrett. And I wouldn't be shocked if they tried to line him up over Rosengarten a little bit in this game. I know he and Stanley have had their battles over the years, and, I'm sure Garrett's going to get his. Like, I think everyone in Baltimore has accepted that Myles Garrett going to have a couple plays where he's just going to wreck the play. But, you also have other players on that D-line that are nothing to scoff at. And so when you talk about guys like Daniel Falele and Ninja Voorhees at the guard spots that have really struggled this season, I mentioned Rosengarten, some of these players, I mean, you have to protect Lamar Jackson. And he is like one of those guys, like you talked about him being like an off-script player and someone who can adjust to anything. And he does that. He masks a lot of poor offensive line play, something we saw on full display when Cooper Rush was in there, when he's just a statue and gets taken down. And so Lamar will have his too. So both guys will get theirs, but it's just a matter of, I guess, who gets theirs more, Myles Garrett or Lamar Jackson.
Well, question about Ronnie Stanley. So I noticed this week he did not practice. It was listed as veteran rest. Yeah. Has that been status quo for the season, or is that just happening now to where he's not practicing at all?
Yeah, he's been banged up a little bit this season, so he's had to go in and out of games for a couple. It was earlier in the season, but they're just being cautious with him. I mean, that ankle injury he suffered years ago still kind of hounds him a little bit, and it's more so with just veteran maintenance. It's nothing necessarily to be worried about, but unfortunately for Ronnie, like, he's probably never going to be the player he was before the injury. And that's not saying he had a great year last year, but still, it's like he's not prime 100% healthy Ronnie Stanley, because that ankle injury was so catastrophic, multiple surgeries, multiple years missed. And they're trying to be as cautious as they can because they really can't afford to lose him. Their backup is Joe Noteboom, who played for the Rams for a while. And it's bad, really bad when Ronnie doesn't play. Noteboom is not anywhere close, and honestly probably shouldn't even be on the roster, but this is the bed they made for themselves. They have no options. They're really missing Patrick McCary, who you couldn't really match that contract that Jacksonville gave him, but McCary was essentially like a 5-position player with one roster spot, and your depth just isn't as good this season. So you're relying on these 5 guys, Stanley included, to be out there and play. And the problem is that even with these guys out there, you're still not playing great football offensive line-wise. The Ravens' bread and butter over the years with Lamar Jackson has been, we're just going to line up on you with our heavy personnel, and we're just going to run the ball down your throat. And you're not going to be able to match our personnel. We're going to blow you off the ball one-on-one, get to the second level, and that's it. But the Ravens have actually struggled with their heavy personnel this season, so much to the point where even the stats show it. I mean, you can tell when you watch the games too. The Ravens are a much better 3rd and long offense than they are in 3rd and short. I feel more confident in them converting a 3rd and 10 than I do a 3rd and 2. And that's unbelievable considering you have Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry on your team and others as well. But that's just been the nature of the game this year for them, where their 3rd downs, and even just like on some of these 2nd and short, and going back to Monken for a second, one of the things that's been kind of rough is some of these Derrick Henry runs on 1st down are very telegraphed. And you just see an all-out commitment to stopping the run on 1st down because you know it's coming, and the personnel and the play call kind of shows it. So less predictability would be good for this Ravens offense. But, I mean, even if the Browns aren't selling out to stop the run, you still have guys that can win one-on-one and make an impact there if your offensive line is not playing well. So Stanley's just a rest day, but you have to be cautious and careful with him because it feels like, you hate to throw the injury prone label on guys, but that's just who he is at this point in his career. And, you got to be as careful with him as you can.
So when they were rotating him in and out, was it Noteboom that was getting those reps when he was being rotated?
Yeah, it was Noteboom. And they've tried it a couple of times where they've tried like in the middle of games, like even when guys are healthy to rotate players in and out. Like they did it for a little bit with like DJ Fluker and Tyree Phillips all these years ago. And, keeping Stanley healthy, they'd rotate in guys for him and do like drive on, drive off. And I don't really believe in that, but
no,
we're not to that point yet. I mean, if they feel like Stanley can give them like half a good game, maybe they would do that. I don't think they should do that. But right now, Noteboom is the backup. There really isn't another option. I mean, Carson Vincent would be your other one who they picked in the 4th round this year.
Love that kid, though.
Yeah, he's an incredible player and person. But yeah, he's not ready yet. And that's just the nature of the game. He just needs more time. You throw him out there, throwing him to the wolves. So they're relying on Stanley in a big way because they really don't have anybody else out there that can pick up that slack.
Yeah, it did make me happy when they drafted the big man of Alabama A&M. He showed up at the Senior Bowl, and you can see what he could be. But like you said,
absolutely,
it's going to take a while because the offensive lines. It's one of the toughest things just to drop a 22-year-old kid and be like, "All right, here's the best athletes in the world. Good luck."
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Yeah, so I'm not happy you guys have him to look forward to down the pipe there. All right, time for the uncomfortable part of the conversation. What is your score prediction for Sunday's affair?
Well, I will say that I think the Ravens are going to win. It's going to come down, and to me, that honestly, it comes down to Dylan Gabriel. The Ravens have had a lot of success against rookie and younger quarterbacks over the course of their franchise history, in large part because their defense is so unique. I wouldn't be shocked if the Browns defense kind of held the Ravens in check. Like, am I expecting the Ravens to put up 41 points again on the Browns? No, I think that defense is too good. And while the Ravens offense certainly is high powered, you're probably going to be without Rashad Bateman in this game. And while he hasn't had a great statistical season, he's still a big part of what you do. And with the way the Ravens offensive line is played, I don't expect that. But the way that, the Browns and look, Dylan Gabriel's still learning. He's still getting acclimated. With all the Shadur Sanders and the Ravens stuff earlier in the season, I'm like, okay, this is going to be the Sanders game, isn't it? Going to start him. And the team that he passed on goes Lamar. But going with Gabriel again, if the Ravens can get pressure on him, it's kind of like what we saw last week with Baltimore with J.J. McCarthy. It's like McCarthy early in the game made a couple of throws. I was like, whoa, like that's crazy. And we're going to probably see a couple of those from Dylan Gabriel too. But as the game went on for J.J. McCarthy and the Vikings and the Ravens started showing them different looks and kind of confusing them a little bit, you could kind of see that the pressure started to get to him. And that to me is what I kind of expect to happen here against the Cleveland offense that quite frankly, just, they don't have a Justin Jefferson or a Jordan Addison or some of those players. And so I think it's a similar situation quarterback wise, not exactly the same, but a similar situation with less talented skill position players. So I think this game will be one for the Ravens defensively. I think Lamar will still get his and Myles Garrett will still get his too, but I would expect Baltimore to walk out with a win. My prediction, I didn't even give the score. It would be 29-19.
Look, man, that'd be an improvement for our offense if we could put up 19. We hit 20 points for the first time. That didn't have crazy defensive touchdowns and such.
Yeah.
There's been so much Shador noise. I forgot about that Baltimore angle earlier in the year. There's been it's nonstop here. Every week it's something happens.
I can imagine.
Yeah, I forgot about that. He chose not to play for the Ravens was the story I heard.
Yeah, he I guess passed up on the opportunity because he wanted a better shot at playing time because Lamar.
And he would have gotten it, right? In theory.
If Lamar, if he was there, Lamar would have gotten hurt like he did, and then Shador would have stepped in probably. So.
Well, let's move on to a funner topic of conversation, and it might actually hurt some people's feelings that are watching this based on the franchise we're talking about. But what is your Baltimore Ravens Mount Rushmore, Kevin?
So I have rules for this. I know because this actually became a very heated topic in conversation within the and I think a couple of sites have done like all 32. Actually, Locked On did a Mount Rushmore for every single team. So my ground rules are that I only pick retired players because I only want to do the stories that have been fully written. So I believe Lamar will be on there one day, but Lamar is not on there for me because his story's not written yet. And, if he wins a Super Bowl or if he does that, like there's still a lot of things that you can say, what has Lamar done? Yeah, a lot. But what hasn't he done yet? There's still a lot of time. So my Mount Rushmore, my 4, it's Ray Lewis, Ed Reed, Jonathan Ogden. Those are the 3 that I think everybody's in agreement with. Like it's kind of no-brainers. Now the 4th one is the spot that everybody kind of gets up in arms about. You have like Marshall Yonda and Terrell Suggs and all these other greats that you could put, Siragusa and a lot of guys. Mine is Suggs though. I put Suggs in my 4 spot. So Ray Lewis, Ed Reed, Jonathan Ogden, and Terrell Suggs are my 4.
The fact that they got Ogden and Lewis in the same draft,
crazy.
That's it. And it's the first draft as Baltimore being the franchise.
Yeah.
That especially hurts us because there's a lot of the same guys that were here making those picks.
Right.
Yeah. There's no way to argue it. I mean, I noticed you left Dilfer off.
I did. It's Super Bowl winner though. Super Bowl winner.
I can't take it from him.
No one can. Yeah.
No, man, that's solid. I view Ogden as a top 5 offensive tackle of all time. I get heat for this all the time. I respect the hell out of Ray Lewis as a football player. Man, he's the best off-ball linebacker I've ever seen. And I miss thumpers. I miss that old school off-ball, just smash mouth, and just when him and Eddie George would go at it. Like, I think about their primes, like, man,
you don't have a lot of them. I guess, and it's funny because now Roquan is in Baltimore, Roquan Smith, and everyone's like, oh, like Roquan and Ray Lewis. I mean, no one's going to ever be like Ray is one of one. Like, there's not going to be another Ray Lewis. But Roquan does, when he's at the top of his game, he does play with that same mentality. He and Ray have done a lot of stuff together. And, like the Ravens social team will do stuff with them. And they did like some film session together and it's all like the same mentality. Like, but I agree. I mean, I'll never forget, like, the hits that he put, like Dustin Keller over the middle and like all these other, I mean, that Ravens and, the AFC North as it was, like the Ravens Steelers rivalry with Ray and Ed and like Hines Ward and Palomalu and those guys. And like, I still remember, who put the hit on Muhammad Massaquoi? Was it
James Harrison?
Was it okay? It was Harrison, and then there was Josh Cribbs took one from
Harrison.
And
he crushed Colt McCoy too. There's a few years there where that was a twice a year occurrence.
Yeah, but the AFC North games too. Like you never, to this day, like you never. I mean, look, I remember last year, the Ravens fans are very happy that Jameis Winston is not walking through that door this time.
Yeah,
I mean, that game was awful. I mean, I remember Deshaun Watson. He came out in the second half with his broken shoulder against Baltimore and went like perfect from the field and beat the Ravens in Baltimore. Like, you never know with these AFC North games. That dates back to however far you want to go back, and with the hard hitting defenses, the physicality, like all 4 of these teams have had moments like that.
I would argue that Deshaun Watson performance was the worst thing that happened for us because it gave us hope that he could actually be that, because he got hurt and he was just gone.
Was that the last full game he played? Was that?
Yeah. So that was the last thing we saw. And then it was like, okay, when we get that player back, that player never, he wasn't there before or after. It was just that one moment in time.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah. The one caveat I would say for your Mount Rushmore, and it's just my personal bias, Jamal Lewis.
Sure, that's another one. Yeah,
Jamal Lewis is one, and I go back to the 2003 season where he had 500 yards in 2 games against Cleveland, and it was the most ridiculous performance.
Yeah, that was how many? 290,
295, and then 205. Yeah, when we played later in the season,
he was unreal. He was an unreal player.
Well, we opened up some wounds there. We'll see how much feedback I get on that. Kevin, I can't thank you enough for making time for us, man. It was awesome breaking this down. Let everybody know where they can find you, man.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me back. This was a blast. You can find me over at the Locked On Ravens podcast. So the Daily Ravens show, 5 days a week plus more. We have bonus episodes and other content as well. I actually now started up doing watch-alongs this year during the games. So I will be live during this 425 game, which is really interesting. I don't know why this game is a 425, but it is. So don't turn on your TV at 1 o'clock looking for the game. It's not going to be there. It's a 425. So we're going to be live at 425 doing the watch along. So if you want a Ravens perspective on how the game is going, you can tune into that. But our regular show is Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. Eastern time. We're available on YouTube in video form or wherever you get your podcasts in audio form. And I also do some writing over at the Ravens Wire for USA Today. And, dip my toes in here and there in the Baltimore sports scene as well. And obviously love doing shows like this and getting on and talking football. It's my passion and I love doing it.
I just heard this week that Locked On is officially the biggest sporting podcast network.
It is. Yep.
It is massive, man. Congratulations being a part of that.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I don't know how many everydayers you'll get from this podcast. They come on over?
Every listen counts. So, even if you just want to tune in for the Browns content and, we'll have an instant reaction after the game and other stuff as well, recapping and previewing stuff, even if it's just for the Browns content, every listen matters.
Yeah, I might crash your watch party, man. I might see how it's going over there.
I'll shout if you throw a comment in there.
Right.
I'll shout. Or what I actually do, because you never know when people are watching. Like some people are like 30 seconds ahead of you. Some people
I know. Trust
behind
me,
you. So what I'll do is I'll have the comments off while during drives, and then during commercial breaks I'll have them up. So if you throw a comment in there, I'll shout you out. That'd be awesome.
We might have to adopt that because we keep getting ruined on our watch parties because things are happening right before we see them.
It's so crazy.
Yeah. All right, guys. Appreciate you guys tuning in. The most precious thing you can give anybody is your time. And I'll take even more of it. Like, follow, subscribe, all the things. Anything you can find us on, come find us. Tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. on this YouTube channel, Jacob Roach and Bill Sparks are going to be breaking down Dane Brugler's top 50. You do not want to miss that. So appreciate you guys, and we'll see you next Friday.